And we're live.
Okay. Well, we'll give looks like there's some people trickling in already, and we'll give the people a chance to come in. But this is our first Quilting with Confidence. I think it's been
Wait. Quilting
I
Business
mean I
Success.
mean Quilting
But it's the first one
Quilting
in
business.
2025.
Yeah, first it seems like it's been almost 2 months, I think, since we've had one. Do you think it's
Well,
been that long?
I've had 2 months worth of dessert if you count Christmas desserts.
Yes. I can relate. I can relate, unfortunately.
Yeah, it has been a while since we have recorded an episode, and I'm really excited today that we have Dawn Sutcliffe with us. Um, Dawn and I know each other. We've well, let's see. Before I just go in and tell the story, why don't I start with our first question, which is, where's home for you?
I'm in Peculiar, Missouri, which is about 30 minutes south of Kansas City.
Hmm. So you are like us, you're enjoying the cold snap right now?
Yeah, it was -7 when I got up this morning. It was just wonderful.
Hmm. Wonderful.
This weather has actually been extending all throughout the whole country, or our half of the country. Texas, Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, snow in the southern parts today. They never get that.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
Anyway, so Don, you know Don a little bit better than I do because you've had more time with him.
Hmm.
But Don, so how long have you been long arming?
I've had a long arm for a little over 20 years now.
And can you tell us a little bit about your story? What made you decide to long arm? How did you start out? Just tell
Sure.
us how that started.
Well, my wife and I had made about 4 quilt tops, and we, like many do, we tried the disastrous idea of quilting them on a domestic machine and learned that that really wasn't a viable option for us anyway. And so we started doing some research, and um, we went to Springfield, Illinois, to a machine quilter showcase, and we knew we were going to buy a machine while we were there. And so we went just radically ignorant of all things long arm, and some really great people educated us the day we spent there, and we walked away with a machine.
Hmm. Now, that wasn't a Gammill machine, was it?
That was not a Gammill machine. It was another brand. We were very thrilled with the other brand. It was just a stitch regulated machine. It wasn't a computer driven machine. But we were very happy with it until January of last year. And I can't say that we were unhappy with it at that point. We just knew there was a better option.
Hmm.
Um,
So before you get into that, let me just ask you, when you bought that machine, a lot of people buy it specifically with the idea of starting a business. Was that the case for you, or was it just for your own quilts that you were doing?
Yeah, we had decided that it was going to be a business because those 4 or 5 quilt tops we had, my wife wanted them custom quilted, and we found out, even at that point, we were looking at 3, 4, 500 bucks a piece, and we were like, well, that's a really good down payment on a machine, and if people can get paid that to do it, why can't we? So we intended to start a business from the get go.
Mhm.
And I have a question. But with you and your wife, who is the primary quilter?
It would be me now exclusively.
Okay. So you know you're in the minority.
That is true.
Mhm.
Not a lot of men out there, but there's a few of us.
There,
I've met
there are.
several.
There definitely are.
So, for those who might be watching on video, I actually have a picture I wanted to share. This is what Don does when he's at work now. So, somewhere after he had had his quilting machine and his quilting business for, I guess, maybe 18 years, he came to work here at Gammill as a technician, and he wanted to know if it was a disqualifying factor that he owned a different brand machine. And we said, no, no, it's fine. I mean, you have the mechanical ability, you're the right kind of team player to be on our team, and all the rest of the stuff that we need our technicians to be. And so this is one of the customers that left him a glowing Google review, of which there are many.
Yes.
She put this photo on her Google review showing, looks like you're putting a new cross-track harness on her 10 plus year old machine, is what it looks like in this photo. So, um, click us back to normal. That was a great photo, actually.
And I will tell you,
Not bad.
I hear from customers all the time. I work in tech support, and I'm always hearing glowing reviews of Don, the technician. So
I hope
So,
so.
so tell me, you had a perfectly functional machine at home that you'd had for a long time, and we were going through the technician training, and you were learning everything about the machines you're going to be fixing in people's homes. I don't know if I ever asked you before, what, where did that fire start building where you wanted to buy the Statler and get it?
Well, before I got to training, I was already interested in the idea of switching to a computer driven machine. And I honestly hadn't done any research on it at all. Um, but when I got to training and got my hands on the Gamma machines, I mean they're just built to be repaired, and they're, you know, I would call a Gamma machine a multi-generational machine, because I mean they're going to outlive most quilters and be passed on. And
Hmm.
I was just sold with the quality.
I was surprised when you said you wanted to get one ordered because like you hadn't been demonstrated like the software very much. You hardly knew anything about the machines, and you're like, man, I got to have one of these. So,
You know, you watch a Statler move for about 10 minutes, and you know, if you've got any quilting experience, you're drawn in.
hmm. So when you started your business, I'm sorry for
no,
breaking in.
yeah, okay.
Uh, when you started your business 20 years ago, how did you know that there was going to be enough market in your local area for another long arm quilter?
Well, when we started calling about getting those 4 or 5 quilts done, the wait time with most places was 6 months to 2 years. So, you know, I knew there was opportunity there. So,
Mhm. And so when you started out, going back, we wanted to move ahead and then go back a little bit to get some of
sure.
your background so people know where you're coming from. But when the primary target audience, I guess that you would say for our podcast here is people who are, you know, either doing quilting for a business or thinking about going in that direction
Sure.
with their machine. Um, when you first started, did you already have some customers lined up, or how did you deal with that aspect of it?
Not at all. At that time, I'm a retired teacher now, but at that time I was teaching full time, and my wife started attending Quilt Guild meetings and passing out business cards, and you know we'd drop business cards at quilt shops, and within a short time we were backlogged 6 to 8 weeks, and before long it was 6 months.
Who did most of the quilting early on?
Um, I did most of it early on, and then kind of in the middle, my wife did quite a bit, and then now I'm doing all of it.
Hmm. That's interesting. Did you notice any customers expressing a preference? Like, I want to make sure that Dawn does this one, or
You're going to get him
I
in
think
I'm
trouble.
just curious because,
honestly, my wife didn't. They assumed I was going to do it, and we didn't particularly tell them otherwise. You know, the
hmm
ones she did were mostly pantographs, and she
hmm.
did do quite a bit of custom too. But
I mean, it's not like you sign
we
up.
let them assume that, you know, they were bringing it to the last stitch, and the last stitch was going to do their quilting.
There you go.
And when you first started, were you still teaching at the time that you first started,
I
or
was, yeah,
what kind of teacher are you?
advanced quilting. I was a, I was a high school math teacher. I taught a lot of geometry and then toward the end, mostly algebra too.
Hmm.
Okay. So, and at that time when you first started, have you been doing hand guided all this time, or did you have computerized?
Yeah, and until I got my machine in March, I was all hand guided. Yes.
Hmm. So, what would you say time wise, because when you have a full-time job being a teacher and then also you're doing quilting, what do you think? Was it like another 20 hours a week or something in quilting, or what do you think?
Probably 15 to 20 a week in quilting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. How many hours a week do you spend these days doing quilting for customers?
It well, it depends on the week. If I'm on the road with Gammill working on machines, I don't quilt at all. But if I'm home, I'm quilting.
Hmm. Gotcha.
So yeah.
And since you got your Statler, are do you stick exclusively to edge, or do you still do any
No,
hand guided?
I'm doing custom work as well. Yeah, I'm doing both.
Hmm.
The thing that really kind of turned me loose with custom though was going to quilting with confidence. I got to spend the 3 days there and I was well prepared going in. So I had watched all of the new owner videos and that gave me a really good foundation going into quilting with confidence. And so I took the advanced class and I came out of that and just, it was radically easier in 3 days.
Hmm.
Now, for the people that are watching, Don, two things. I want to kind of get your feedback on the quilting with confidence, and also as far as just the general resources available, like some of the videos that you had talked about. How has the your learning experience been with Gamma with your Gamma?
It's been amazing. As far as quilting with confidence is concerned, I mean, I don't care how long you've been quilting. If you go, you're going to learn some new things that you can apply instantly. Um, I think it's well designed in the fact that it's well over the years I've taken lots of classes at different shows, and a lot of it was very niche quilting ideas that weren't applicable to mainstream quilting. Um, but quilting with confidence is completely not that. I mean, it's applicable. It's improve your skills really fast kind of stuff. Um, it's just phenomenal.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know what Bobby would say, but I see so many posts that people make in the Facebook group or whatever, and they have questions. And a lot of times, my first thought is, um, they've got an inherited machine, or their sister sold her machine or whatever, and so they never got any training with the machine. And so often, I'm looking at that, and I'm like, wow, if you could just order the new owner training. You won't
Yes.
you won't miss the cost the minute you buy it because you get all that training for a year, lifetime access to the classes, but
Mm.
a lot of hand holding for a year, and then go to a quilting with confidence. So that's
Well,
interesting that you bring that up because.
honestly, with that new owner training, I would play it on my laptop and then do it right there along with somebody on my machine. And I mean, it was like having a private tutor right there all the way through.
Mhm.
New owner training is really well done as well.
And Andrew, speaking of that new owner training, is that something that's available that people can acquire even if they don't have a new
Yeah, well, like
Gamma?
like Don said, the machines are made to last for generations, and they do. And so usually people only quilt on a machine for maybe 30 years at the most, and then they go to their new owner. And so the new owner training is set up so that even when a machine is 100 years old or 150 years old in the future, whoever owns that machine, it's new to them. You know,
Mhm.
it may not be a new machine, but it's new to them. And so that they'll have all the training that they need. And because it's a global system, I mean, people can access it from around the world and it's available 24/7. And, you know, if one person points out a little something that should have been in the class, we add it to the class, you know,
Yeah.
so that it includes everything that a person needs to know, all the basics.
And I also wanted to tell anybody who is listening or watching this live, you can, we should have said this at the
Oh, yeah,
beginning. Yeah,
questions.
you can submit a question. You can click on the bottom of your screen. Is it the Q&A one?
You know, I think the buttons they see are
The
different, but
chat? Okay.
whichever button is there for asking a question, you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
People
feel
figure
free
it
to
out.
ask a question.
Yeah. So back to the back. I wanted to get back on track a little bit with my normal questions. So you do custom quilting as well as edge to edge. How do you? I'm assuming you charge by the inch for your edge to edge, but how do you price out your custom? Do you quote each one individually, or do you give people a
Um,
range?
I price it by the square inch as well, but depending on how dense or how complicated of designs they want, that would affect what the price would be.
Gotcha. Just curious, I've never asked anybody this question before, but what's been your most expensive custom quilt to date?
Um, I did one. It would have been one I did with the hand guided machine probably 10 years ago. It was probably 800 bucks.
Hmm,
It was
not
a
enough.
an applique quilt that had all kinds of flowers on it and I did a lattice in the background and then mashed down the holes in the lattice with tight quilting.
At the end, did you feel like you had charged enough?
Um, Probably not.
That's a lot of
I
work.
I, I probably spent I probably spent every bit of 50 hours on it. I didn't track it, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, live and learn, right?
That's right.
So, for the people that are watching, an average, say, queen size quilt, what would you say that your average price for something like that would be?
For an average queen, that would be little math here real quick.
Math
The
teacher.
math is coming out, yes.
Right.
Yeah, well, if it was algebra, he'd have the answer already.
About 175 to $200
Mm-hmm.
if it's not super dense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some city areas are a little bit higher, some rural areas are a little bit less. Sounds about right for peculiar.
Yeah,
So over these, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
no, you're good.
Over these last 20 years, can you tell what how many quilts like a year on average you would do, and maybe what was your largest amount of quilts in a year?
Probably the largest would have been a couple hundred. Um, the, you know, the past few years, I haven't done near as many. My wife and I took on the kids ministry at our church, leading that. So I kind of had to let go of the quilting instead. And in the past, I don't know, about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, I guess, I've stepped back from that and my wife's doing that full time. So I have quilting time again. So
Mm.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So, when people bring you a quilt to do you also have things like batting or wide back fabrics or any of those other things to sell?
I do batting, but I don't do the backing fabrics, just the battings.
Mm-hmm.
And I welcome them to bring whatever they want to as well. Many bring their own.
Mm-hmm. Do you trim the quilts when they're done or leave them untrimmed or you ask the customer their preference?
I will trim it if they ask me to, but I typically leave it untrimmed. That kind of scares me to to trim them because I mean people have widely varying ideas on what that means, in my opinion. So, you know, I had a
Yeah.
lady one time that, she was like, we get in the floor with a T-square, and I mean, she didn't want you to quilt too close to the edge because she needed room to be able to get it absolutely square. And I mean, she won tons of awards with her quilts. And so I would never want to trim one of her quilts. But I
Mhm.
have trimmed some for folks that would say, I don't have a place I can do that. And, I tell them what I'm going to do and be sure it's okay first.
And you do run into certain people that you just kind of have a knowing that you better not go off and do anything that's take any artistic license, huh?
That's exactly right. And then it goes the other way too, that they're totally welcoming to absolutely anything you see. So
That's part of the art of growing a business, being able to read people in that way.
that's
Mhm.
exactly right.
Mhm.
So Don, you've been doing this for 20 years. The question I want to ask is, what would you say has been this that you look back over the last 20 years, what has been the hardest part of growing the business, or do you have any anecdotes or thoughts about that?
I would say probably the hardest part is getting to the place that I can be okay with charging what my time is worth. Um, Especially when I first started, I was worried that my work wasn't good enough. And so, I'd undercut what it really should have cost. And, for one, that's not fair to the other quilters in the area. And it's honestly not fair to me as a quilter either, because I was producing exceptional work and getting paid less for it. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Did you at the beginning, did you feel, was there like an insecurity about, well, is my work good enough, and that caused you to kind of not want to charge as much as you probably should have?
It really was, because honestly, before we quilted, you know, any quilts at all, I mean, we'd never even taken a quilt to someone to have it quilted. So we didn't know what that should even look like.
Mhm. Um, what what has been maybe, can you think of one thing that has changed in terms of technology that's made it easier for you now than 20 years ago when you started?
Clearly the Statler. Um,
I suppose I should have expected you to say that.
Clearly. Yeah. Um, yeah. It's just honestly, it's just easier on the body than swinging the machine yourself.
Mhm.
And I also love that I can set it to quilting, and I can come off to the end at my domestic machine, and I can piece while it sews.
Mhm.
So it kind of lets me multitask.
You've got a unique and valuable viewpoint of in view of your experience, and that you hand guided for all those years, and you've been relatively recently that you've gotten into the computerized with your Statler. Um, can you tell us, as far as learning how to operate the Statler and the software and everything that's associated with that, has that has that been hard or easy? Tell us a little bit about that.
Um, I wouldn't call it either one. I think it's just one of those that you've got to be willing to jump in and try and realize you can't break it beyond what a phone call to tech support can fix. And
Sure.
you just got to be willing to try. Um, I think I came into some of that with probably some unique perspective, because um, as a teacher, every year there was some new kind of software or new tech tool or new whatever that we were expected to implement. So I wasn't afraid to try things. Um, so I think I had a baseline there that kind of set me free to be okay with trying it.
I I'm curious when you made the change from the hand-guided machine to the Statler, um, what was your reaction from your customers? Did you gain customers or did they have different comments when they picked up their quilt and you'd done 20 of them with your old machine and now you did one with your new machine? I'm curious how that went.
They really didn't have much difference at all. Um, that I don't think anybody even made any issue of it.
It's just the same old, oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. I love it.
Yeah, I know you're gonna give me good work. I know you're gonna make my quilt look better than it does when I drop it off. And they were thrilled when they picked them up.
hmm Here's another question I have for you. I'm just coming up with all kinds of new questions.
Yeah.
But have you do you have any comments about the tension? You know, the tension of the thread and everything on the stitch. Because you changed brands of machine in there. Um, what's been your perception there?
Well, I feel like my stitch quality is probably better on the Gammill than it was on the other machine. Um, Simply, I think I learned some stuff in tech training, and within a few weeks of being on the road that you know made my stitch quality better. I now know exactly what to do if it's not right and how to fix it. Where before I was just, I was cranking the knob on the side of the machine and hoping for the best. And, you know, um, if you don't have a toa gauge, buy a toa gauge and set that bobbin tension and keep
Yes.
it the same. And, then you've eliminated half your battle already. So,
I always tell people if they have the toa gauge, if you don't have a toa gauge, you're trying to balance the top and the bottom tension back and forth, and it becomes
correct.
almost, to use the phrase, an algebraic equation. But if you have that bottom tension set, on what it's supposed to be, then it becomes much simpler. It's just a matter of adjusting that top tension. So yeah, I'm
Right.
with you on that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
hmm
So who has been in your journey? Who's been your biggest cheerleader on your journey?
Clearly my wife. I mean, she's always willing to let me, try new things. She's always encouraging me to, I mean, I like to buy fabric just like every other quilter, and she never complains about that. And um or thread or any of that. But she's always been incredibly encouraging.
hmm
There's a lot of worse vices that you could have.
There are.
Fabric addiction, I don't know.
That's right. That's right.
What kind of impact has the quilting business? Um, Particularly, I'm thinking about the income, that you've obviously earned money doing the quilting over 20 years. But what kind of impact has the money and the control over your personal schedule? You can do it when you want. What kind of impact has that had in your life?
Um, Probably the best part of it is, I mean, my wife has stayed home until recently, becoming the kids minister at our church. And we've got 6 kids. And honestly, the quilting machine has funded multiple trips that our whole family has taken, to do mission trips. And we've gone to Taiwan several times to do mission work there, and it was funded exclusively by quilting.
hmm
Well, we have a very specific question that came up here for since you are a technician. Lynetta is asking, what should the bobbin tension be the same number on the toa gauge regardless of thread weight?
Yes. Set that bobbin at 200 on the toa gauge with whatever thread you're using, and adjust the top from there.
Mhm.
Unless you have a 18-inch Premier machine, the tension is a little bit different in that one.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of that is the magic of the TOA gauge. I'll chime in on that answer because um, even going within the same brand of thread, like a real common brand is Signature, another brand
Yep.
is Omni, but whatever brand you're using, if you switch from light gray to yellow, even though it's supposedly the same thread, you will read a
Right.
very different reading on the TOA gauge. And so just even changing from one color to the next,
There,
you're going to
yeah,
need to adjust your bobbin case.
there are different amounts of drag on different threads,
Hmm.
the different weights of thread, even different colors of thread, like Andrew
Yeah.
said.
Some of the colors
Reds and
are
blacks.
significantly thicker.
Yeah. Reds and blacks tend to create radical change from the light colors I found.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's a surprise for a lot of people. They're like, but it's all, Omni's supposed to be 40 weight. Well, it's supposed to be.
Supposed to be.
What can I
Right?
say? I I'm not an expert in thread. I'm an expert in dealing with thread. That's a different thing. So what's something, Dawn, what's something that you wish someone would have told you when you first started?
Um, well, I had somebody that actually told me in a class I took one time. She said that not to pick it out unless you can see it from 40 miles an hour on a train going by. And I early on I picked a lot of stuff out because it wasn't just absolutely perfect. If my feathers didn't retrace right over the top of each other for the veins as you went back and stuff like that, I'd start picking stuff out. And honestly, when you take the machine off the quilt and so it's a little wider in one place than the other, or it doesn't track right on top. It doesn't show when you step back 10 feet and take a look. So
Hmm.
yeah, don't be so critical of yourself.
Hmm.
Well, we're getting close to the end of our show. I wanted to ask you one more time if you could you, if I can put you on the spot, can you give us a
Sure.
brief commercial about uh, why you would recommend quilting with confidence? I know you mentioned that earlier.
Sure. I would say um, quilting with confidence. For me, the thing I walked away from it with that I was incredibly elated with was I walked away able to digitize patterns myself. Um, it's one of those things that it doesn't matter how skilled you are going in, you're going to walk away with some new skills. And whether that's skills taught by the instructor or that's skills by just hanging out with other quilters for 3 days, I mean that's valuable professional development too. Um, you're going to learn new stuff, and I think you could go year after year after year and still do the same thing.
Hmm.
Um,
I
it's just
recall
phenomenal.
last year in last year's Quilting with Confidence, we had multiple individuals who attended a Quilting with Confidence event, and then they immediately signed up for one later on in another part of the country.
Mm.
Sure.
Either they started with the basic and then they signed up for the advanced, but sometimes not. Sometimes they were just like, I've got to do that again. Um, and that was really now I want to tell people that the schedule for 2025 is not out yet. It's being worked on every single day. I sometimes walk past the lady's desk where
We
she's
get
working
calls
on it.
every day, people
We do.
asking.
People want to know when and where because I need to put in for my vacation time,
Sure.
and I'm very grateful to all the people that wrote in and suggested locations. This year we put out the call on Facebook or maybe it was through a email newsletter. I don't remember, but we gave people the opportunity to suggest places in their hometown that might be
Mm,
a good location. So it's going to be the best year ever, I'm sure, for 2025. So
yeah,
It's
I had
well
the
worth your time and your
opportunity.
money to make it happen.
Yeah,
yeah.
I was able to go to Quilting with Confidence this year in
Hmm.
Tennessee, and it was phenomenal. I want to go again.
Hmm.
Tell
And
Michelle.
and if you want a more exclusive experience, we have retreat style ones that we do. We have a cruise coming up in April, and I think there's still room available on the cruise. And those are, they're more expensive, but they're also there's the quilting with confidence. You should hit that and the cruise. Like don't not do the cruise, but don't miss out on quilting with confidence because the way that it's structured, it packs a tremendous amount of punch uh, from the materials that you get and the way that the time is very carefully planned. There's really no wasted words and no messing around at Quilting with Confidence because we set it up, teach the classes, and head on down the road. It's very tight. So I see it looks like Shandy probably posted the link to everyone, which is for the cruise, gammill.com/cruise 2025. Um, yeah, I'd love to see anybody on the cruise. I'm going to be there. So, and several other people that I talked to today are going to be there as well. So,
Yes.
mhm.
Yeah.
So, last question that we have for you, Don. So 20 years ago, you got your first machine, and 2 years ago, you got your Gammill. No, 1 year ago, you got your Gammill.
Year ago,
Um,
yeah. Well, not
yeah,
quite a year even.
yeah. So, what advice would you give to somebody who uh, has heard about what you did and they like that idea? They want to have their own quilting business. What advice would you give them, and do you believe that it's just as possible now as it was when you did?
Oh, I totally believe it's completely as possible now as there ever before. I talk to quilters all the time that are still backlogged, you know, 2 to 8 months all over the Midwest. I'm hearing that. So there's very much market that's out there that could be taken advantage of. I think the advice I would give is um, Gammill pretty much has an entry point for anybody that wants to get into the business. I don't think there's any wrong way to get into the business, whether that's starting with a stitch regulated machine or starting with a computer driven machine or going clear to the top and getting the ascend. Um, or I think getting a pre-loved machine is a great choice too. Um, but I would say there's an entry point for anyone that wants to get into the business, and don't be afraid to take the jump. Gammill offers the support that's necessary to be successful. They offer the education that, I mean, within a short time you can be well educated and on your way to making money instead of just trying to flounder and figure out what you're doing. That's different than it was 20 years ago for me.
Hmm.
Um, so I'd say take the leap at whatever level that means for you personally.
Hmm. Thank you. You mentioned that you've been around and you've visited a lot of people that, like you, have a backlog of quilts to get done. What states have you mostly worked in?
I am mostly Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, a little bit of Iowa and Missouri.
Hmm.
But I've been clear to the Gulf and was in South Dakota last week. And
Hmm.
so,
So you see this all over where, because I do too, whenever I'm out in
absolutely.
people's studios, they've got loads of quilts to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most people are as busy as they want to be.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, cool. We got a comment. It wasn't a question. We got a comment from Angie. Thank you guys from Piedmont, Missouri. Good questions. I did quilting with confidence in Little Rock this past year. Totally worth it. So yeah, there's been threads on
Thank
Facebook
you, Angie.
too where people have one person says, "Oh, I just went to Quilt with Confidence, and y'all are missing out," and there'll be 100 other people that chime on and say, "Oh yeah, don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it." So anyway,
Absolutely.
um, yeah, you that information, of course, is on Gammill.com. Well, hey, Dawn, thank you for joining us today. Um,
My
the
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I think your story will help people to believe that maybe they too can chase their quilting dream and make it happen.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, Don Sutcliffe, we really appreciate you joining us. And we're going to say good night to everybody.
Well, I was going to ask, do you have a website for your
Oh,
quilting
yes.
service?
I don't. I am completely word of mouth at this point.
Okay, all right. Well, we're not going to send traffic to your website then.
Okay. I appreciate the offer, though.
All right.
Listen, for quilting business success, do we have anything about,
Well,
let's see.
we had a question. Somebody asked if Gammill has a directory of quilters. We do not. Something we've talked about having. There are some complexities. It's not off the table. Might happen someday, but we got to work a few things out. So thank you. That was a good question. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And Don, we'll see you at work.
Yes.
Sounds
Yes.
good. It's good to
All
see you
right.
guys.
All right. For
Good night,
quilting
everyone.
business success, I'm Bobby Ware, and this is Andrew Weaver. You
Mhm.
guys take care, and we'll see you next time.